So this isn't quite the video I thought I was going to make. Now, part of it is, quite a bit of it is. In fact, I did go set out to test the RTX 2070 in the workstation you see over my shoulder. I wanted to do that and sort of compare that a little bit to a little bit more modern CPU, like the 5800X that's in my regular rig that I stream on and my everyday use. But I ran into just a little bit of an issue doing something else, which was the reason why I tried to set this video first. And we'll talk a little bit about that, but the main focus is for 350 bucks, that machine back there is not too bad. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about why I was going to do this video, but you guys have probably seen this Z440 on the channel before. I upgraded the processor in it, the RAM and all that stuff, and I think I got us to around 210 bucks for doing that. Decent, not too bad. That is including, say, with a GTX 1660. Now, if we swap that out for something, say, a little bit better, in this case, an RTX 2070. We're still under about 260 bucks because you can find that card anywhere from 120 to like $180 right now on eBay, depending on whether you buy the super version or regular version or what have you. So an RTX 2070 will cost you anywhere from like 120 to about 200 bucks. And yeah, still fits in the budget for this. The reason why I was going to do this is because on AliExpress I came across an RTX 3070 made by Milsey, M-L-L-S-E or M-L-S-S-E or whatever it is. If I remember, I'll put it up here. But the same people that I got a previous RX 580 from. Now, I know that this had to have been a mining card or something, a refurb, but I thought, you know what? We'll give it a try. And even if it's a failure, even if it's not what it's supposed to be, or even if it's, if it's good, bad, or indifferent, we would have some content and we would be able to compare it to this RTX 2070 that's in there right now. Didn't quite work out that way. See, ordering from AliExpress and trying to do this, my first clue was that I didn't really get a tracking number right away until after it was already supposed to be due. And then I got a tracking number, and it took a little while, and it was supposed to be shipped from Turkey, and instead it was being shipped from Hong Kong. And then I didn't get any updates at all. That tracking number that they gave me wasn't working until it hit U.S. Customs in New York. And I thought, okay, that's a bit strange. And then a delivery center in Pittsburgh, and then finally being delivered in West Virginia. And they couldn't deliver it in West Virginia because I live in Florida. Other logistics things aside, I'm not able to change the delivery from the original delivery address. I have no idea if this is actually even the right package, and a whole other thing. So I'm trying to apply for the refund on that. I'm not going to be able to test that, so I will keep looking for one of those refurbished RTX 2070s to try to do this with. If I'm going to buy something more mainstream, an EVGA or MSI or something like that, I might as well just get the real thing off of eBay. I was thinking that maybe I could get one of these that had been redone from, Sanyo or Soyo or Milsey or one of these companies that we know does some of these refits and test it that way. But that still leaves us with our budget workstation back there. How does it compare to that same video card being in a more modern system? And actually pretty well. We're going to start Shadow of the Tomb Raider. We always start there. We're going to start there this time too. And you can see at 1440 it hangs pretty close. And it's not until when we change the resolution or the detail down at 1080 that it gets a little bit away from us. And I'm not going to say it gets away from us because 20 frames per second is not that far away. But if you're already running at 80 or 90 frames per second in 1440, you're probably not going to be running at 1080. This is not a competitive shooter. This is something that actually runs pretty well at 30 frames per second. And to have 3 times that amount at 1440 does pretty well. We can't really complain. When we're looking at Borderlands 3, I run Borderlands 3 now in DX12. I'm thinking about going back to 11 because 12 just, sometimes has its little glitches and has its little issues and doesn't play well with things like MSI Afterburner. But still, we did some testing on it. Didn't have any issues with MSI Afterburner on that workstation. we only did with the 5800X. So I'll dig into that a little bit more. Probably some other thing I've got installed somewhere. Again, 60 frames per second on 1440 high. Borderlands, again, is not a competitive shooter. That's something that I think is really, I mean, solid range. And it's not until you get down, again, into the lower resolutions where you start to see more of a gap between the 5800X and the 2667 processor, the Xeon processor that is in the workstation. By the way, that Xeon processor is in there. It's a 2667, 8-core, 16-thread, very similar to the 5800X from AMD. It has 32 gig of memory. In this case, it's running at 2133. The DDR4 that is in the AMD build is running at 3600. Some little differences like that. But it's not until you get down to those lower resolutions where the processor is having to do more of the work that you notice any kind of difference like that. We're going to notice very much the same thing in Cyberpunk. A little bit closer here. The 2070 is, it's a solid card. Whether you've got it in an older Xeon or a newer AMD, or I've got similar numbers, quite honestly, with the 12700KF that is in my editing rig. It handles it pretty well. Well over 60 frames per second. Does great. It's not until you get into lower resolutions, and only really at 1080p low, where you see a difference in this. So again, with more modern titles, things that are in DX11 or 12, things that have to do with any kind of upscaling or whatever, you're going to be fine with that card. And I guess this might be more of how would an older generation RTX card do for you? Well, even in a budget type workstation build, it does fine. The one thing I did notice though, when we go to more competitive shooters or we go to more esports titles, a game like Counter-Strike, you can notice a difference. Now, I was still getting over 120 frames per second at 1440 and 1080p. I was surprised that there wasn't more of a gap in between changing resolutions on each on each PC. Where I did notice a difference, though, is the 5800X was significantly faster. And I probably would not have noticed that if I hadn't been testing them both back to back or looking at these numbers right after I had done this. If you're 120 frames per second, in this case, it didn't matter really whether I was on 1440 or 1080p. I was getting very similar numbers for each one. And that also came whichever PC I was using. The 1440p and the 1080p numbers were very close to each other. But there was a difference in the newer processor being able to run this faster. So I think in a lot of these cases, it's going to be not a limitation of your GPU in some of these competitive shooters and esports titles. It is going to be a limitation of your CPU. Still, if you can run at 1440 over 120 frames per second, that's going to be pretty good for most of us. So what I'll do is I'll do like a bit of a tally sheet. I think all totaled everything, taking off the GTX 1660, adding in this card instead. I think the other build, if I remember right, came out to about $260. I'll put the updated total here. It's going to cost you probably another $50 or $60 for the RTX 2070 over that 1660. But we're talking about from maybe, I don't know. Right now, I'll put it up here, but it's probably going to be $320 to $330 if you find an average RTX 2070. Also, keep in mind that in this case, I had that K4200, that other video card that already came in that workstation. I could sell back for $30 or $40. So we're actually dropping that price down back below $300 again, which I think is pretty fair. It's a good deal, and for relative budget, we're getting pretty good performance overall. I'm never going to notice a difference. This is not a PC that I'm going to build for competitive games or competitive shooting games. But I could probably hang. At my skill level, I'm sure I could hang with it. If you're a professional, you're not looking at a rig like this anyway. But for you and me and whoever else is just out in the market of trying to save a little bit of money and get a decent PC that will play most modern titles and do things, yeah, you can do it for around $300. I'm not going to say under $300. You probably can if you cut a few other corners, but that RTX 2070 is more than a capable of card. That processor that's in there, that Xeon, again, more than capable, and she runs pretty well and surprised me. I mean, it did run a little bit warmer the longer I tested, but still pretty good. Besides, I don't know where we're going to put more case fans in there. There's already a lot of case fan going on. Anyway, yeah, for 300, we'll call it 320, 330, whichever the case is. I'll have an exact total, like I said, one the tally sheet up there. But I think this worked out pretty well. And I do not get to test the RTX 3070 that I thought was going to be in there, that would have been about the same price as the 2070. But yeah, maybe we'll see what happens next time. I just wanted to see if that RTX 3070 was actually a real thing. Yeah, maybe not. It's not going to be a real thing now because it's not going to be delivered to me. But in any case, yeah, win some, you lose some, right? And I told you guys I would share my fails with you as well as my successes. So I don't know where this leaves me, except for the fact that this is a solid build for a decent price. It is something that's going to get you in. Now, it's not going to be updated. You're not going to be able to run Windows 11 with all the updates and all that stuff. That might be the limitation. But you can't do it with older Ryzens, and you can't do it with anything farther back than, say, 7 Series Intel anyway. So, but who knows? Maybe we can find a use for it. In any case, that is all I have for this one. If you got anything out of this video at all, go ahead and throw a thumbs up or throw a like on it, please. If you're not already subscribed, please do. I did not hit 1,500 by the end of the year. Maybe my heart wasn't in it the last 2 weeks, but yeah, you know what? We're still in really, really good shape, and I would love to be able to hit that by the end of January. So if you guys could do that, if you're not already subscribed, please do. Don't forget to check out the other socials, including the Discord channel. I'll leave a link down below. We've only got a couple dozen people, but we're growing, and we'll love to have you in there and come hang out with us. But if you don't do any of that other stuff, if you don't like, subscribe, hit the other socials, Discord, or stream on that purple channel or anything like that, just do me one favor, the most important favor of all, and that's be good to each other. Smile, wave, hold the door open, say good morning, just be nice. What does they say? Don't be a jerk. Yeah, just try to be a little bit less of a jerk. Yeah, be good. Be kind to each other, and be kind to yourself. Happy 2025. That's all I know to say at this point. Happy New Year. I hope everybody is going to have an amazing year, and you guys take care of yourselves. And until I get myself into something I got no business getting into, and there's still some other stuff over there. Yep. Yeah, that's it. So I'll see you later.